The last thing my father said to me before hanging up 5 years ago was, "Don't call this family again." Then he blocked my number. My mother did the same. All because of a lie my sister told them. A lie they never bothered to verify. A lie that cost me my parents, my family, and 5 years of my life. I spent those years trying to move on. Trying to accept that the people who raised me had chosen someone else's version of the truth over their own child. Then at 2:17 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday my phone rang. The caller ID made my stomach drop. It was my mother. I almost ignored it. But something told me to answer. When I picked up, she was crying so hard she could barely speak. "Please," she whispered. "Your sister's in the ER." I almost hung up. Then she said 6 words that changed everything. "You're the only doctor available." What could have happened that made my mother break 5 years of silence? And before we continue, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring you more powerful stories like this. And I'm always curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. I love seeing just how far these stories travel. Now let's get back to the story. 5 years ago I thought I had everything. I was halfway through medical school. My grades were strong. My future finally felt real. And most importantly, my parents were proud of me. At least that's what I believed. Growing up, my younger sister Rachel and I were never particularly close. We weren't enemies. But we weren't friends either. Rachel hated being compared to anyone. Especially me. Whenever I achieved something, she found a way to dismiss it. If I got an award, she'd say I was lucky. If I earned a scholarship, she'd say the competition wasn't difficult. I learned to ignore it. I figured she'd grow out of it eventually. I was wrong. Everything changed during my 3rd year of medical school. I had just been accepted into a highly competitive residency track. It was the biggest opportunity of my life. I called my parents immediately. They sounded excited. Proud. My mother actually cried. For a few days everything felt perfect. Then something changed. My calls started going unanswered. Text messages were ignored. Emails received no reply. First I assumed they were busy. Then weeks passed. The silence became impossible to ignore. Finally, I drove home one weekend hoping to figure out what was happening. The moment I walked through the front door, I knew something was wrong. My father wouldn't look at me. My mother looked angry. Not upset. Angry. "What happened?" I asked. Neither answered. Then my father finally spoke. His voice was cold. Disappointed. "We sacrificed everything for you." I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" My mother folded her arms. "Your sister told us the truth." My stomach dropped. "The truth about what?" My father looked directly at me. "About you quitting medical school." For a moment I genuinely thought he was joking. I laughed. Nobody else did. That's when I realized Rachel had told them a lie. And somehow, they believed every word of it. 3 months later, my parents made a decision that changed the next 5 years of my life. 3 months after that conversation, my parents stopped speaking to me completely. No phone calls. No messages. No birthday wishes. Nothing. At first, I fought for the relationship. I sent screenshots of my grades. Copies of school records. Even a letter from the university confirming I was still enrolled. It didn't matter. Every piece of evidence was dismissed. Somehow, Rachel's story carried more weight than the truth sitting right in front of them. Eventually, I stopped trying to convince them. Not because I gave up. Because I realized I couldn't force people to believe me. Even when they were my parents. So I focused on the only thing I could control. My future. Medical school became my entire world. Class. Clinical rotations. Exams. Long nights studying while everyone else slept. It wasn't easy. There were moments I wanted to call my mother and tell her about a difficult exam. Moments I wanted to share good news with my father. But there was nobody on the other end anymore. So life moved forward. I graduated medical school. Neither parent attended. I completed my residency. Their seats remained empty. A year later I got married. I mailed invitations anyway. Just in case. Neither responded. Every milestone came with the same feeling. Pride mixed with disappointment. I wasn't mourning the family I had. I was mourning the family I thought I had. Over time the pain became quieter. Not smaller. Just quieter. I built a successful career as an emergency physician. Made friends. Built a home. Created a life that no longer depended on their approval. And little by little I accepted that my parents might never come back. That maybe the lie had won. Then, 5 years after our last real conversation, everything changed. It was a stormy Tuesday night. I had just finished a long shift and fallen asleep on the couch. Suddenly my phone lit up. I glanced at the screen. The number looked familiar. My heart stopped. Because it was a number I hadn't seen in 5 years. My mother's. For a few seconds I just stared at the screen. My mother's number. 5 years. 5 years without a single call. 5 years without a single message. And now she was calling at 2 in the morning. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. Said I answered. Hello. At first all I heard was crying. Not quiet crying. The kind of crying that comes from genuine panic. Then my mother's voice finally broke through. Please. I sat upright immediately. Mom. Your sister is in the emergency room. My stomach tightened. What happened? I don't know, she said. Everything happened so fast. For a moment neither of us spoke. 5 years of silence stood between us. Yet suddenly none of that seemed to matter. Because beneath everything else, Rachel was still my sister. Then my mother said something strange. We need a doctor. I frowned. Mom, you're already at a hospital. I know. Her voice cracked again. Please just come. Before I could ask another question, the call ended. I stared at the phone for several seconds. Then I grabbed my keys and headed for the hospital. The drive felt surreal. Part of me was angry. Part of me was confused. But mostly I felt numb. Nothing could have prepared me for what happened when I arrived. As I walked into the emergency department, I immediately spotted my parents. They looked exhausted. Terrified. My mother was pacing. My father sat with his head in his hands. Then they looked up. And saw me. The shock on their faces was almost unbelievable. My mother froze. My father slowly stood. Neither said a word. That's when they noticed the hospital badge clipped to my coat. The badge identifying me as the attending physician overseeing patients that night. 5 years. 5 years of believing I'd abandoned medicine. 5 years of believing a lie. And now they were standing in my emergency department. The reality hit them all at once. Then my father looked at me. His eyes filled with regret. And he asked a question I never thought I'd hear him say. Can you ever forgive us? For a moment I didn't answer. My father's question hung in the air. Can you ever forgive us? 5 years ago I would have given anything to hear those words. Now I wasn't sure what I felt. Before I could respond, a nurse approached with an update. Rachel was stable. The relief on my parents' faces was immediate. My mother sat down and started crying again. This time not from fear. From guilt. After making sure everything was under control, I joined them in a quiet family room near the emergency department. Nobody seemed to know where to begin. Finally, my mother spoke. Rachel told us everything. I looked up. Everything? My father nodded slowly. 3 weeks ago. My stomach tightened. For 5 years they had ignored me. And the truth had only come out 3 weeks earlier. My mother wiped her eyes. She admitted she lied. The room went silent. Even though I had always known it, hearing those words felt different. Permanent. My father stared at the floor. She told us she was jealous. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course she was. My mother continued. She said she hated how proud we were of you. I didn't know what to say. The explanation didn't make the damage any smaller. But it finally made it make sense. Then my father looked at me. We missed everything. His voice cracked. Your graduation. I stayed silent. Your residency ceremony. I nodded once. Your wedding. That one hurt. Even after 5 years. My mother started crying again. We threw away years we can never get back. For the first time I saw the full weight of what had happened settle over them. Not just the lie. The consequences. The birthdays. The milestones. The memories. All gone. Then my mother looked directly at me. Her eyes were filled with regret. And what she said next hurt even more than losing them in the first place. We never even gave you a chance to explain. For a while nobody spoke. My mother's words echoed through the room. We never even gave you a chance to explain. That was the part that hurt most. Not the accusation. Not even the years of silence. The fact that the people who knew me best had never asked for my side of the story. One conversation. That's all it would have taken. One conversation could have saved 5 years. My father rubbed his eyes. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller somehow. "We failed you," he said quietly. Those 3 words carried more weight than any apology I'd ever heard. For years I had imagined confronting them, listing every missed birthday, every unanswered message, every milestone they chose not to attend. But sitting there, none of that seemed important anymore. Because the damage had already been done. The only question left was what happened next. A few hours later, Rachel was awake and recovering. When she saw me, she immediately started crying. "I'm sorry," she said. Over and over again. "I'm so sorry." I believed she meant it. That didn't erase the past. But it mattered. For the first time in years, nobody was making excuses. Nobody was shifting blame. The truth was finally sitting in the room with all of us. And strangely enough, it felt like a relief. Before my parents left that morning, my mother hugged me. The first hug in 5 years. My father followed. Neither wanted to let go. Things didn't magically become perfect after that. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. Families don't heal in a single conversation. But we started trying. Phone calls became regular. Dinners happened occasionally. Slowly, carefully, we began rebuilding something we should never have lost. Looking back, the hardest part wasn't losing my family for 5 years. It was knowing they were only one conversation away the entire time. Because one lie broke our family apart. But one difficult truth finally gave us a chance to put it back together. Sometimes the truth arrives late, but it still matters. If this story touched you, like the video, subscribe and share your thoughts below. What would you have done?